So didn't work that time.
Close enough.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome back to Absolutely the Best Podcast. This is Series 1, Episode 3. I'm Zach, and with me is George.
Hello.
We'll be discussing 2010's Iron Man 2 and figuring out where to place it in the MCU movie ranking. Before we get into it, I did want to point out a couple of things. I want to shout out to our listeners in Italy and France. We've been getting some downloads there, which I thought was interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Like repeated downloads of each episode has been downloaded by multiple people in both countries. So that was pretty cool. And then everything else is in the US, which is fine. We like the US too.
Kevin Feige on vacation.
Yeah, maybe. And shout out to my niece Sydney and my neighbor Lynn, who found the podcast organically and then told me that they found out about it. And I got super embarrassed. Glad to have you guys. And, thanks to everyone else who's listening. We appreciate it. So let's get into Iron Man 2. This is the third movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe chronology. I think it's kind of weird that the third movie is the second Iron Man. We had Iron Man and then Hulk, and now we're going back to Iron Man.
Right.
But, it was early days. We're going to be trying something a little bit different this episode. We're combining a bunch of segments into one long one rather than trying to break things down specifically what did we like and then specifically what we didn't like. This way, we're just kind of going over the basic beats of the movie as we go. We're still assuming that the listener has seen it, and we're still going to be spoiling it. So if you want to watch it first, you better go do that because we're going to start spoiling stuff right away. But no need to necessarily have it fresh in your mind. I think most people will remember things as we talk about them. Okay, Iron Man 2 was directed by Jon Favreau, same as Iron Man 1. I'm pretty sure this was the very next project he did after Iron Man 1. So I guess he was pretty dedicated to the character. The screenplay is by Justin Theroux, which was surprising to me because I thought he was just an actor.
No, Jennifer Aniston's husband too, or ex-husband, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that didn't last too long, I guess.
No.
I don't know why I thought he was just an actor. I thought I was familiar with him, but it was just his name and like in a positive way. I wasn't like, you, Justin Theroux. I was like, oh, pretty sure I like that guy. But it turned out I wasn't really that familiar with all the stuff that he had done. The one
Actually,
character,
I don't even remember him as an actor.
The one thing that I can picture him in, which I had to look it up to find out, but he was in American Psycho, and he's just like one of the smarmy business douche guys in that.
Huh. Okay. Yeah.
And I forgot. I did know this, but I always forget it. In Zoolander, the evil DJ who plays plays the records in that's him. Yeah, and I guess interestingly, they had originally written that evil DJ character into Tropic Thunder, but that scene got cut. And Justin Theroux does a bit part as a gunner in that movie, as he's also the writer and an executive producer on that. So that's a good movie. I mean, he does good stuff of what I've seen, but most of the other things that were listed for his credits, I didn't even know. I hadn't heard anything about it. So let's talk a little bit about when each one of us first saw Iron Man 2. You want to go first on that?
No, you can. You can.
Okay.
I was like, good.
I saw this one in the theater, and I couldn't remember. I mean, who remembers what day you saw a movie? But I am a maniac, and I collect all my movie theater ticket stubs. And I was like, oh, I'll just check my ticket stub. I'm curious as to how long I waited to go see this one. I saw it opening day in the afternoon at a matinee. I have almost no recollection of watching it in the theater at all. I mostly remember Whiplash whipping his whips around for far too long. I remember the suitcase suit, which is cool, but I remember also having a problem with the mass change from the suitcase into Iron Man. I mean, the Iron Man suit is, I don't know how much it weighs, but it definitely weighs a lot because we saw in the first movie where he breaks through the floor into like his underground garage by landing. Yeah. In the wrong spot, I guess. So there's no way something can be that heavy and then you can carry it around if it's in a suitcase form. But I'm a stickler for details like that. But I thought it was cool enough where, I can move beyond that. I remember ScarJo making her debut as Black Widow, and since seeing it in the theater, I'm certain I've watched it a second time because I bought it on digital a long time ago. But when I rewatched it most recently, a lot of it seemed new to me. I'd totally forgotten about it. So going into it this time, I tried to be positive because I really liked the character of Tony Stark and Iron Man and just Robert Downey Jr. in general. And
Yeah.
I was surprised. I mean, we were pretty down on this in like even in the intro episode that we first recorded. And I was surprised. I actually enjoyed this quite a bit. I don't know why I thought I hated it so much.
No, I'm kind of right there with you. I do remember seeing it in the theater. I do remember walking away pretty disappointed and just kind of leaving with a that's it.
Yeah.
And I remember disliking Whiplash a lot. I remember
Yep.
disliking Justin Hammer a lot. I do remember Jon Favreau's scenes as Happy just killed me. Just like I loved it. So I loved this character so much.
It's a
I do
bigger
remember
part for him too in this.
Oh, so yeah, so much bigger. I do remember ScarJo appearing, like just being awesome too. Just knowing like, oh shit, she's the Black Widow. Those are the two standout. Those are the two biggest things for me. I think that I can remember off the top of my head right now. So two really good things, two really bad things.
Call it a draw.
But yeah, College Job. But then I like you, like I watched it again and ended up liking it a lot more. I think mostly because I just got past some of the silly stuff that I wasn't such a big fan of. Oh wait, Elon also showing up too. I think that Elon kind of brought it down for me a little bit, seeing him and seeing the cameo again.
I don't remember him
And
being it. I don't think he wasn't on my radar at all when I first saw it. But in this one, I was definitely like, "You gross, Elon."
yeah, same here. I was like, oh, that's right, this guy's in here.
I'm sorry. Let's get into the main discussion then. I had you starting on this actually. So if you want to,
I actually liked this opening scene, and then it crashed for me, mostly because it takes place right after. I mean, it's right after Iron Man 1 left off, where Mickey Rourke's dad is watching the news, and RDJ basically says, "I'm Iron Man," and then all of the hubbub that ensues after that. Mickey Rourke's dad basically dies in his arms, and then he does that whole crappy villain no like cry thing,
yeah,
except it's like really just bad. And then you just get this montage of everything that happened with Tony Stark in Afghanistan, except it's Ivan Vanko in this prison somehow gets all of the same exact material that Tony Stark had, and he's rebuilding his version of the arc reactor because he has a copy of the plans, except in the plans it has his dad's name plus Howard Stark's name next to it.
yeah. So one thing you said reminded me. It's kind of like when Tony was imprisoned in the first movie. I think there's a lot of things that happen in this movie that kind of echo the first.
Right.
But I liked that. It wasn't exactly the same, but it's just kind of the same beat or the same theme.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. But yeah, like right off the bat, I thought it was interesting that it picks up right at the end of Iron Man 1, at least at the very beginning of this. We'll get into that. But then right away I was like, Mickey Rourke is gross. And like, I don't know what's worse about him. His gross non-stash with the little piece in the middle missing, which like, how do you even shave like that? Like you must have to pluck in between or whatever. I don't know what's worse, that or like his perpetually wet bee stung lips. Like what kind of work did he have on his face?
Lips.
He's so gross looking. And like, he wasn't always like that. I don't think he was ever like, I mean, I wouldn't say he was bad looking. He was never like Hollywood handsome or whatever. But oh man, he's in his later years. He had some bad work done or something.
Yeah, his lips look just like bad Botox the entire movie for me.
Totally, it's
like something was going on. I couldn't stop seeing his lips.
Yeah, it was distracting to me.
But yeah, it kind of bugged me that at least in where Tony in Iron Man 1, Tony Stark had all of the weapons that he could like plunder parts from.
Right.
But this guy was in a prison, so where was he getting all of the...
Where did he get the palladium from?
Not even palladium, but like anything from to create his... Because I get he was supposed to be making a crude version of the arc reactor, but still, like, he did... Like, where are you getting crude parts of an arc reactor from like in a prison.
Well, not to mention the first arc reactor that Tony built was already a crude version. So like how much more crude can you get and have this thing work?
Yeah. So yeah.
So right off the bat, we're introduced to Mickey Rourke's character, Ivan. I keep wanting to say Yvonne because I know a guy named Yvonne. Shout out to you, Yvonne, if you're listening. So Rourke's character, Yvonne, he's the genius physicist son of Anton Vanko, who you're saying died in this prison. And through the kind of opening montage scene that you're talking about, we learn he's the co-creator of the first arc reactor with Howard Stark. His name is on the blueprints for it, which I guess was for a patent or something. But later on, we find out in the movie that Ivan believes that Howard wanted the fame and fortune. I'm sure Anton told him this, but they believe that Howard wanted the fame and fortune for himself, and therefore he had Anton deported. But supposedly, and I guess, it's whose word are you going to take for it, but I'm probably going to take Nick Fury's word for it. Supposedly, Anton was selling the secrets to other countries, and that's why he was fired from Stark Industries and deported. So you talked about the montage. Did we talk about the montage? Yeah, I guess so.
Just have a thing with every time I see a montage, the Team America plays in my head. That Team America song. It's gotta be a montage.
Even Rocky had a montage.
Mm-hmm.
When they were showing the blueprint, the important information was the other name on it, like the Anton Vanko. So they were showing the blueprint and it says arc reactor and Howard Stark on it. And so I was like, oh, there's the studio thinking the audience is dumb and they got to be reminded of everything. But the important information was that it also had Anton Vanko's name on it, which is Ivan's dad. And so like I was the dummy and the studio was right. You don't really find out Ivan's dad's name right away. I only knew it because of the subtitles when they were talking at the beginning. It says like, Anton : and he says whatever. So, I feel a little bit like I was initially correct in my assumption. But
it'd be neat to do. I don't know if I have the time to do it, but I think that they showed those same plans in Iron Man 1 when they were looking at trying to when that one scientist was getting the lecture to shrink it somehow.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And Jeff Bridges was like Tony Stark did it inside of a cave. Like, you guys can't do it. But wasn't there like a blueprint of the arc reactor there? And I'm kind of curious if the name is there.
I will double check that. And I don't know, maybe I'll like splice in something like, yes, it was, or no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
Yeah, that just occurred to me just now.
That's interesting. I had a similar thought where I was like, should I compare the scenes where from Iron Man 1 where Tony's building the arc reactor to this opening scene where Vanko's building it? And then I was like, I don't have time for that. But I have time. I have time to go back. Yeah, I have time to double check a blueprint in one scene in Iron Man 1. So when I'm editing this and hear this again, I will double check it. So where was I? Okay. So Ivan's dad had to die for him to finally get so mad that he finds the will to make his own arc reactor. That was what was holding him back to begin with. And then the whole purpose of this is to get revenge on Tony because of what Howard did. Like, it kind of doesn't make sense, but that seems to be his motivation. And so, accepting that and moving on, I guess.
Yeah, these are the little things that make me just not a big fan of too.
Yeah. After the opening scene, it's 6 months later, and Tony's restarting the Stark Expo, which is, I guess, something that his dad used to do. Of course, we have Robert Downey Jr. returning as Tony Stark. He continues to be great. I really love the character. And I think a lot of why I enjoyed this movie so much this time around was because of Iron Man and Tony Stark.
Yeah.
He's so dryly funny, and he's an arrogant jerk, but he still manages to be charming. Like, you still want, I mean, obviously he's the good guy, you want to be on his side, but like, you're never like, ugh, gross, like when Musk shows up on the scene.
I mean, I think a little bit of that has to do with both of us know what's going to happen to him down the road.
That actually, yeah.
So there's nostalgia there.
That likely colors it a lot. That's a good point.
Yeah. Because I was wondering why I liked this one more than I thought too, because I remember just really disliking Iron Man 2. And then when I rewatched it, I was like, oh man, That's right. He's a pretty great guy.
Yeah, I was certain that I hated this movie, and I don't want to.
Same here.
I don't want to get too far ahead here, but I will say I definitely did not hate this movie after watching it this time.
I still hate it. I just hate it less.
Okay. So at the Stark Expo, Iron Man lands at a very high velocity, not shattering the stage or any of Tony's bones. And he lands in like the typical superhero pose. And I think that's the first one in the MCU, maybe. I'm sure they didn't make it up. I'm not sure it's not the first one ever, but I think that's where the superhero pose makes its entrance. There's a couple more. Black Widow gets one in later.
Yep.
And then I noticed that he's still, like, he lands on the stage and then all the gantry arms come out to help him get out of the suit. And so this is still the suit from Iron Man 1, I'm assuming, which is like the Mark III or the Mark IV. I lost count.
I think it's the 4.
I think you're right.
I think it's 4. I still like that gantry system, though.
I liked it better in this. I had a problem with it in Iron Man 1, but I think I knew because it was in Iron Man. It was just too goofy what was happening in Iron Man 1 for me with the gantry system. Here, it was just like, let's get him out of the suit. It happened pretty quick. He's made some improvements.
Right.
So during Tony's Stark Expo monologue, he is extremely cocksure with what he's saying, and he really sounds like he's asking for trouble. He talks about how he's basically saved the world and created the longest moment of uninterrupted peace in years, and it's almost like he's begging somebody to come challenge him. And obviously, knowing what happens in the movie, I was kind of dreading that the level of hubris in his speech necessitates an ironic twist. So after that, we go backstage after his speech, and then we as the audience learn that the palladium core of the arc reactor in his chest is slowly poisoning him. It's poisoning him. And now welcome to my first nerd rant. He does something, he like does some kind of test on his finger to test his blood, and it says like 19% blood toxicity. At this point, he hasn't said anything about the palladium yet. It just says 19% blood toxicity, which seems alarmingly high, with no other information. And then a short while later, it's all the way up to 24%. And so I guess that's supposed to be a percentage of the amount of whatever level is in his blood that would kill him, was my assumption at the time.
Yeah, I just assumed it was that too.
And I was trying to get out of my nerd brain and just said, okay, not everybody is a scientist, and, 24 seems low if 100 is the high end, right? So that's kind of passable. But then like you find out that it's palladium poisoning, and I was like, well, how is palladium getting into his body? It's like,
that's a good question. It's
pretty inert as a metal. So, and he's sliding these slabs of metal into the reactor, changing them out. So it's definitely a metal. It's not like some palladium compound. But it's pretty inert as a metal, so it's not absorbed readily into the body. And if it's poisoning him, why can't he just go back to like powering the thing in his chest with like a car battery or a lithium ion battery that's a lot smaller? Something other than the arc reactor, when he doesn't also have to power a suit, so he's not being poisoned 24/7.
Yeah, I think like the way that it looked like it was built, it looked like the palladium shouldn't be touching anything. It should just be touching the inside of the reactor.
Yeah.
And so I didn't understand like how he was getting poisoned by the palladium.
Because it's not like,
and then B, why it was corrosing like that.
Yeah.
Or why it was corroding like that.
It's not like there's a gaping hole in his chest that's like bone and tissue. It's like there's like a metal canister that it sits into. It's like, so that seems fishy to me. And I think I have more on that later. I know I have more on that later. But that's what happens after we've established he's got the Stark Expo. He's slowly dying, basically.
Yep.
And then after the event, Tony and Happy leave, and then it's almost like another montage where he's walking through the crowd and they're like seeing famous people.
Yeah.
And I totally missed the Stan Lee cameo. I caught that later, looking into other stuff, and I went back and checked it. It's Stan Lee supposedly as himself, but he's mistaken for Larry King. And like he is dressed exactly like Larry King. So
you saw the other Larry, right? Larry Ellison.
Oh yeah. At the time, Larry Ellison's barely on my radar now anyway. But when I first saw it, I didn't know who that was. So anyways, they leave the Stark Expo event. They're getting in a car to drive off, and then he gets a summons from a woman, and she's played by Kate Mara, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, who goes on to become Sue Storm in the Fantastic Four? I guess the bomb one, the one that didn't do so great.
You're gonna have to be more specific than that.
The one with
the latest
Michael
one?
B. Jordan and Miles Teller, the latest one.
That's really bad. I mean, I'm not going to, but I would have to watch the second original Fantastic Four again to decide which one of those two is worse. The Silver Surfer one.
Oh, that's gonna be painful.
Yeah. I'm not gonna do it.
I watched it again. I actually watched that one again because I thought that the design for the Thing and the Human Torch were great, and also what do you call it? The director there did such a great job on Chronicle, which I liked a lot. So I was just kind of surprised it fell apart as much as it did.
Pretty good movie, yeah.
Yeah.
Studio meddling is probably the problem. Happens a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
So I forgot to say what the summons was for. So Tony's given a subpoena to appear before the Senate Armed Forces Committee. So basically the next scene is at the Senate hearing. And again, Tony's being...
himself.
Yes, very much himself. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And basically it says because of the Iron Man suit, the world is safe. He's saying it's not a weapon. And here we get introduced to a new character in the movies, Justin Hammer. He's a government military weapons contractor, and he's there to present the case that the Iron Man tech should be in the hands of the military, not in the hands of a private citizen. But Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer. He owns Hammer Industries, which is a weapons manufacturer. They basically kind of filled the void of Stark Industries left when Tony stopped manufacturing weapons and started focusing on the Iron Man stuff.
Yeah. I tend to like Sam Rockwell, I think, in most of his stuff, but like for whatever reason, and maybe it's just because he's such a great actor, but I just didn't like the Justin Hammer character in general. I think he was just more annoying. Like the way that Tony Stark is very charismatic and witty, he's that level of annoying, which is super annoying.
I agree.
Just nowhere near as Tony.
I definitely remembered not liking him in it, and it was maybe one of the first roles I had seen Sam Rockwell in. So I think for a little while I was like, "Ugh, I don't like Sam Rockwell." But this time around, I mean, I definitely didn't like the character, but I kind of chalked that up to good acting on the part of Sam Rockwell. And I kind of enjoyed it because he just wants to be Tony Stark so bad, and he's just trying to do it, and it's not good. It doesn't work out. He's kind of smarmy and gross, but he lacks all the charm that Tony has. He's much more of a. Go ahead.
I just nailed it. He's kind of he gives a guy that's very obviously fake it till you make it.
And he's still in the fake it stage.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think that's why he got under my skin. Props to Justin Theroux for being such a good writer for writing him really well.
Good point. Yeah, he comes across as like a business school frat boy douche, and it's kind of grating, but I enjoyed it this time around because I guess I knew it was going to happen. I know he's supposed to be that way, and so I was like, good job, Sam Rockwell.
Yep.
There is a line he has in this Senate hearing where he says,
Anthony Stark has created a sword with untold possibilities, and yet he insists it's a shield. He asks us to trust him as we cower behind it.
And I thought that was actually a pretty good line. That was, I didn't want to take his side, but that was a fair argument. But then I also he said sword and shield. So I was like, is that a wink to Sword and Shield, I don't know what you call
future organizations?
Yeah, the organizations that are in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, I didn't actually take it as like a reference to those. I thought it was actually more like a wink to Captain America, which was going to be coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, that would make sense too. I like that. I mean, and I don't think we've even had the introduction of Sword into the MCU yet. Anyway, I think there might have been talk about it in one of the TV shows or something, but
not till I think the Marvels or
was it mentioned in the Marvels?
I think Miss Marvel. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Okay,
so after Justin Hammer talks, Rhodey gets called to testify, and he's kind of forced into saying some things out of context and make it sound like he doesn't think the Iron Man tech is safe, in the hands of Tony Stark anyway. And he thinks that the military should commandeer it from him. And I think he's actually basically forced to say that Tony's a threat. So it's Don Cheadle as Rhodey this time, replacing Terrence Howard. And I like Cheadle so much better than Terrence Howard.
He's got presence.
Yeah,
I really liked it when I really liked his War Machine. There's that scene there's that scene when he first puts on the War Machine armor, and he's like, "Get out!" And then the faceplate closes.
Yeah,
and everybody just freaks and like leaves. I was like, yeah, that's a War Machine right there. That's how you play War Machine. But I think I even liked his entrance when he was just the back of his head, and you knew that wasn't Terrence Howard, but he was just walking. And
yeah.
Tony Stark goes up to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm here. Deal with it. Let's move on." And it was like such an obvious like line from the studio, like from Marvel and from like everybody else. Like, yeah, we know this isn't Terrence Howard. Get over it.
Well, not only
That's how I
that,
took
but with that one line, you could already tell that him and Robert Downey Jr. had way better chemistry, and like, and throughout the movie, they have kind of like a ball busting dynamic between them. And Terrence Howard always just seemed annoyed. And with Don Cheadle, you can tell that the two characters care about one another, and that's just how their relationship is. So I was glad to see the change. It really paid off in this and going forward.
Yeah, I think that reminds me of like what we talked about in our first podcast, where Terrence Howard always had this like main character energy to him.
Yep.
Not wanting to be just a sidekick kind of vibe, but he thought he should be. I don't know if I'm reading too much into that, but that's kind of the vibe I was getting. But you don't get that at all with Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle's just got this. I'm good as War Machine. I know I'm a badass, and
he's
I'm
great
and
as
I'll
War
give
Machine.
it to Tony as good as I get it.
Yeah,
he's great as War Machine. Yeah. Right after that intro, and right after Gary Shandling, the senator congressman, talks about how they need to hand over Iron Man because all these countries are starting to develop their own Iron Man tech. Mm-hmm. Tony Stark hacks the computers in front of him and basically shows all the video clips of these countries that are supposedly really close to perfecting the Iron Man technology, and it's just like this hilarious montage of everybody and the cameramen especially dying. Right, even like I think Justin Hammer shows up, and his prototype is like basically copying him, and it's a manned prototype, so there's a guy in a suit of armor, and then I think Justin Hammer says turn left, and then the suit torso does a complete 180.
Yeah, and you hear the
just
guy
hear this scream.
Yeah. That was great.
And he's like,
I'd like to point out that test pilot survived.
Yeah. Like, oh, okay, no problem then.
But yeah, that was a pretty hilarious montage.
I like that quite a bit too. I had that in my notes.
Yeah, that one line that he said.
Most countries 5-10 years away. Hammer Industries 20.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was like a perfect little Tony Stark quip. Yeah, that whole like scene was pretty funny to me.
You mentioned Gary Shandling as the senator. Was it Senator Stern?
Stern. Yeah. He was great. Oh man, he died. He passed away recently too, huh?
I feel like it was probably longer ago than we realize. It was probably like, I want to say 5 years ago, so it was probably even longer than that. But that's a bummer. R.I.P. to that guy. He was good.
Yeah.
And
I liked his senator.
Yeah, he was good. He was very unhappy about things. He did a good job playing the role. And of course he ends up being Hydra in one of the later movies. I don't remember if it was Captain America 2 or Civil War. I think it was one of those two.
I want to say Civil War because I remember Cap and what's his face, the Falcon and the other lady, basically trapping him, or was that the other guy? That might have been the other agent.
I just remember him being on the steps of some Capitol building or whatever, and like handshake hugging some other dude, and they're like, "Hail Hydra."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Ooh, he's Hydra." Anyways, so because Tony thinks he's dying, he's starting to unravel. He's doing reckless things. And there's a scene in Tony's lab where Pepper starts arguing with him over his behavior, and he basically acknowledges the problem. He, kind of on the spot, decides that Pepper's going to be the new CEO of Stark Industries, and she's a bit taken aback by that at first. And of course, we have Gwyneth Paltrow returning as Pepper Potts. We kind of discussed her a lot in the first Iron Man. This is a meteor part for her. I feel like she can show off her acting a little bit more. And I felt like it was better. Not that it was bad. I didn't think it was bad in one. I didn't think it was bad in one. But here she has the opportunity to bring a lot more to the movie. And I thought that this scene was a good example, that this exchange where he's like, oh, you be CEO. And she's, has to turn on a dime with her going from anger to surprise to eventually acceptance.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she's okay. She's pretty good in everything. I mean, I think she's just naturally a great actress. And so, I don't know, maybe I just have more expectations of her because she's such a great actress, but it still feels like she's phoning it in. And she's phoning it in better than most actors better than most people on their best days. Because maybe I'm just a little butthurt about how she had that comment in some interview where she forgot what Marvel movies she was even in because she'd been in so many.
Oh yeah, I hate when people do that. Yeah, just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, but I mean, as Pepper Potts, she does a pretty good job, I think, all in all.
Tony proposes that Pepper be the new CEO for Stark Industries. And there's also, in this scene, I think she hands him a package and he unwraps it or maybe it's already unwrapped. But she hands it to him and it's this really cool Iron Man poster that's done in the style of Shepard Fairey's Obama Hope poster. I hope that didn't sound like the word salad it looks like. But, I hope people know what I mean. If you don't know what I mean, Google that Shepard Fairey Obama Hope poster. I really liked it a lot, and I used it for the episode art for this episode. I thought it was cool. I kind of want a poster, like a full-size poster of it in my room.
Yes, I
don't know how my wife would feel about that.
I think they did commission it from Shepard Fairey for the
No,
movie.
I looked into it. He said, I think they were like, is this okay? And he was like, yeah, it's fine. But he said that he didn't actually do it and he was totally fine with it. There's somewhere in here, there's a scene that shows Tony trying to find a replacement for palladium in the arc reactor. He needs something different to power the arc reactor. And he's trying different element combinations and everything seems to just be simulated by Jarvis. So he's like, try this. And Jarvis is like, all right. And they shows like a projection of the Iron Man suit and just things happening in general. And then Jarvis says, I'm sorry, this isn't a suitable replacement. By the way, Paul Bettany returning as the voice of Jarvis. He's great. So if it's just simulations and Jarvis is doing it, why isn't he just working on it around the clock on every single possible element and combinations of elements, like binary and tertiary, at least combinations? We used to do this for Catalyst Discovery manually all the time. Like, nothing simulated. We just take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and you mix them together, and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And we would do thousands of combinations in weeks. So I figure an artificial intelligence supercomputer could do this much, much faster. That was another nerd gripe. And so it's around this, I think Rhodey walks in and he tells Rhodey about the palladium poisoning, and he's always walking around drinking. I think at one point he says it's chlorophyll or something. But it's some green drink he's drinking out of this water bottle to try to counteract the poisoning. Yeah,
I actually got that. I think I told you I got that water bottle on his desk because I actually searched for it.
Yeah.
The company's named Core. I think that they're still around. Yeah. But I just really liked how it looked on his desk because it just looked like this cool, sleek water bottle. But it's design-wise, it's awesome, but it's not such a great water bottle. The head like folds down and it's just so hard to clean. But I did like how cool it was.
Yeah. That's interesting. It just seemed like a water bottle to me, but I didn't look at it that closely.
Yeah.
So when he tells Rhodey about the palladium poisoning, he's changing out the the palladium in the arc reactor. He pulls out like this, like a small slab, I guess, of some material that's obviously corroded and kind of smoldering. And I think you pointed this out, but like Rhodey's like, is that supposed to be smoking?
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's another really cool thing I like about Rhodey. Like, he came in just hot, just like, why the heck are you doing this? Like, what's going on? And then he just switched to like BFF mode as soon as he saw that like something's wrong.
yeah, like, oh, there's a problem. There's a reason for this.
Right. Like, oh, maybe there's something else here, and he's actually caring about the situation.
Yeah,
Tony.
So Tony says the palladium is suffering neutron damage, and I was like, that almost sounds real, and maybe it is. So of course I went down the rabbit hole. You know, he says that the palladium is being consumed, and he keeps having to change out these bars of palladium. So I had a lot of thoughts on this. I don't recall the arc reactor needing a bar of palladium in Iron Man 1. It was just a wire. And I went back and rewatched a little bit, and when he made the first one anyway, and he just makes this little tiny wire. It was like, we need 0.6 grams. So it didn't need this big slab of palladium in it. So he says that the palladium is being consumed. So I thought, well, I guess maybe it could be consumed because it's a very inert metal. Like, you're not gonna, there's not some chemistry happening in the arc reactor. So I thought, could it be being consumed by some kind of nuclear reaction? And it turns out that palladium can undergo neutron bombardment to make rhodium through an electron capture, if you care about all the details. So it is possible that if whatever's happening in the arc reactor, if it's bombarding it with neutrons, it could be consuming the palladium. But also, that's an insanely expensive fuel. It's like $1,000 an ounce, and those bars look to be like 1 ounce size bars of palladium. So I don't know how quickly he's swapping them out. And I guess it also depends on, how many like megawatts or gigawatts or whatever you can produce from 1 bar of palladium. So like, maybe it's cheap energy, but also you can't consume the world's supply of palladium. There's a reason it's expensive. There's not a lot of it. And when I was just kind of looking around for stuff like this, I did find that there was a science blog entry about it, and this person came to a lot of the same conclusions that I had come to. I think they wanted to buy into it a little bit more than I did, though.
Yeah, I think when I saw that, I just assumed, because I don't remember palladium being mentioned in Iron Man, the first Iron Man at all. So I just assumed
just
it was
that one
of those...
scene when he made it and needed that one little ring that they got all, because they took apart the missiles. They got this one piece. He's like, that's 0.01 grams, and we need 0.6 or something like that. Anyway, sorry.
Was it palladium though? Because I don't remember.
Yeah, it was palladium. This specifically said palladium. Yeah, I double checked.
Okay. But yeah, I don't know, that whole thing, it does make me think. I think one of the first thoughts in my head when I saw the smoking core the second time around, or third time around, was there's no way in hell I'm volunteering for Neuralink, because I'm not putting any kind of like wires or like even a patch of a metal piece next to my brain. Just no thanks. Like, not even beyond that, like, I'm not letting any company that Elon, given Tesla's safety records and stuff, I'm not putting anything into my brain.
You don't want to let Elon Musk fry your brain and probably have you pay for the privilege of it? Like the auto driving feature that isn't perpetually in beta that you have to pay for?
Hard pass. Like, hard pass.
Yeah, I'm definitely a no thanks on that too. Okay, because Tony wanted to make Pepper Potts the new CEO, there's obviously some papers that need to be signed. So then we get a scene where Tony's training with Jon Favreau in like a boxing ring that he has in his office building for some reason, because he's rich.
You don't have one?
Not yet. They're putting it in next week. So then this is where ScarJo shows up as Natalie Rushman, and she's an employee from the legal department. But she's secretly Natasha Romanoff, that we find out later. She's, of course, Black Widow, but never referred to that in this movie, not even in the credits, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, they didn't?
No, like, she's never once referred to as Black Widow. Everybody knows it, but she's never once called that. It's not, she's just, it might say Natalie Rushman / Natasha Romanoff in the credits, but I think it just says Natasha Romanoff.
Oh, interesting.
But in the extras, they're always referred to her as Black Widow, so it's very obvious that that's who she's supposed to be.
Right. Seeing her, seeing her first appearance was something else again. Just going, like, oh man, that's right. That was Black Widow like years and years ago before she.
Baby Black Widow?
Huh?
Baby Black Widow?
Yeah. But like, just seeing how young everybody, even Jon Favreau, man, he's definitely a lot more sprightly in this movie. I mean, it's just kind of funny just seeing him get his ass beat by like first Tony for a little bit, and then him being so condescending to Scarlett Johansson, and then her handing him his ass.
Yeah, that was good.
Like the whole sign with like, oh, you've done some work, you've done some Taibo, you've done some kicking. He's just making fun of like what she probably did, and then she just totally beats him down, and everybody's like so concerned. That just
it was a good entrance.
Yeah, it totally is. It's an awesome entrance.
For the sake of brevity, let's just say Tony hires Stark employee Natalie Rushman to replace Pepper as his assistant. It's a little more complicated than that, but we don't really need to get into the nitty gritty of it. So Tony goes to Monaco initially to watch the Monaco GP, but kind of on a whim because he's being reckless, he decides to drive in it. And assuming that it's a Stark Industries sponsored car or something, because I'm not sure how else he would have just been like, I'm going to drive this car. I mean, I guess if you got enough money, you can do anything you want. Yeah.
Yeah, he just owns the team.
Yeah, and this had your favorite part in it too.
Oh yeah. Oh, when Ilana came right in.
Yeah.
And he did his like, oh, I have an idea for an electric jet. I was like, get out of there.
So stupid. Yeah, my exact note when I was watching it was, ew, gross. Elon has a cameo.
Yeah, I think that was back when he was less obviously a troll than he is right now.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, he was, I think I mentioned it before. I don't think I even knew who he was when I first saw this movie.
Yeah. Same here.
But, unfortunately, the truth has come out. There was also a Bill O'Reilly cameo. I don't know if you caught that. It was like on the TV. And I was also like, gross Bill O'Reilly, but he's just he's being himself, and that's how he was supposed to be. It was a little more acceptable to me. It was just this brackish prick.
Yeah. And then you caught the scene with the Leslie Bibb, the Iron Man 1 reporter. Yeah. Did you know that she and Sam Rockwell have been dating since this movie?
Oh no, I did not know that.
And I think that they live together too.
That's how long this was from 2010. That's 13,
14 years. I think 2007, 2008 actually. Wasn't this 2008?
I think it was 2010. 2008 was the first one. But
was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was that Pepper Potts line where she's like, well, she did quite a spread on Tony last year. And RDJ is saying like, oh, and she wrote a story on me as well.
Yes. It was so good. I had that.
Such an awesome line.
Yeah, I put that down in my notes too. I might drop the clip into that. It was really good.
She's actually doing a big spread on me for Vanity Fair. I thought I'd throw her a bone,
Right? Yes. Well, she did quite a spread on Tony last year.
And she wrote a story as well.
It was very impressive.
That was good.
Very well done.
Thank you.
That's such a Tony Stark line, or a Tony Stark feeling, or an RDJ / Tony Stark line.
But then, I thought Pepper kind of had a bit of a Tony Stark line with that first part, where she's like, she did quite.
She totally set him up for it, right? Yeah. It was like she set him up for the layup.
So Tony's driving now in the Monaco GP, and it's here that we learn Palladium isn't the real bad guy of the film. It's Ivan Vanko. So Ivan Vanko shows up in some sort of exoskeleton, wielding these weird electrified plasma whips, which are powered by the arc reactor that he built. And he's technically the character Whiplash, but he's never referred to it as that, nor is he credited as that.
Yep.
But like with Black Widow, they call him Whiplash all the time in the behind the scenes stuff. So it's pretty obvious. Everybody else knows who that is. But I'd like to thank the movie for not trying to force in lines about the comic book character's name like they did in the Hulk.
Yeah.
Like Happy could have easily said something stupid like, Tony, that guy almost gave you whiplash, or like when he shows up on scene, it would have been really bad. And it definitely could have happened based on that opening scene, but it could have been like, call me Whiplash. So they were smart enough to leave that out.
If they did, this would have went to the bottom of my list so fast.
Yes.
I don't know. I just thought that the villain, I just thought Whiplash in general was a stupid villain. Like, you've got this near infinite power source in your chest that just pretty close to Tony Stark's Iron Man arc reactor, and then you use it to make whips. Like, that makes no sense to me.
It's
like,
so dumb.
At the very least, a lightsaber or like a laser gun that you can just power for like ever. Like, why a whip? It just
This is what I mainly hated about the movie. I mean, I guess I still kind of hate that. Like, is so dumb. It's so dumb. But that's what I remembered most about it and why I thought I hated it so much.
You're going to hate the fact that even without a helmet and without like targeting sensors, he knocked away the repulsor blast that Tony was shooting at him earlier.
Yeah, I mean,
when he finally got the suitcase armor on, he like whipped it away.
Yeah, you pointed that out, and I was like, no, I don't think so. And I was watching, I was like, I think he's just dodging. And I was like, oh no, he definitely whipped one away. That's lame.
So bad.
Whiplash shows up. I'm just gonna call him Whiplash, even though everybody knows that's who he is. He shows up, wreaks havoc at the Monaco GP. He's obviously trying to get Tony Stark. There's a lot of commotion. And then Happy and Pepper are trying to get Tony the suitcase suit, which I think is the Mark V. And Happy's driving the car. Pepper's shrieking in the back, which I did not care for. And he hits Ivan with the car.
That also bugged me. Like, how did he survive getting full on hit and then pinned against the wall by a car? Not only that, but he survived long enough to push the car aside, even though he didn't have any. He had like a barely there exoskeleton, which looked like it was only there to support the whips. So where did he get the strength to push the...
I think Tony kicks the car out of the way, and I was like, why are you doing that? He just freed him. Oh. Yeah. I think he was kicking it away to get Pepper and Happy to safety.
Oh man, maybe I have to rewatch that thing.
Yeah, I think
he pushed it.
Yeah. I could be wrong. But at the very least, his legs should have been shattered.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, it should have been, all of his bones should have been broken in his legs.
Just a bag of meat and bone dust.
Right. But I do love that suitcase armor, man.
It's so good.
I think that is hands down the most memorable scene in the movie. I think I still see it in like memes. I still see it in everything Iron Man related as the biggest and most memorable part of Iron Man 2.
I think so too. I mean, it's definitely the most memorable. I feel like it was maybe in the trailer, which they probably shouldn't have done. But I mean, I guess that got people in the seats. But yeah, it's really cool. Even though it's completely impractical and impossible, I really, really like it. And when it all comes together and it's kind of got the tread of armor across the chest, it looks awesome. And then it gets immediately wrecked, but it was cool. That's definitely something I remembered from seeing it in the theater. I also remembered from the scene when Whiplash walks out onto the track and kind of fires up his suit, and he's wearing like a jumper or whatever. Most of it burns off. Yeah. And Mickey Rourke just looks like he reeks of BO and Axe body spray at that point. And the lightsaber whips are dumb, especially going up. He's got melee weapons they brought to a ranged weapon fight. And I think this is a totally dumb character. I also don't really care about racing or cars. So like the whole Monaco GP thing, I was not psyched about. But this watch through, it was not a long drawn out part of the movie like I had thought in my mind. So I liked it a lot better this time around. Yeah.
I really hated that whipping of the repulsor blasts away. Like, I was just like, I saw that and I was just like, oh, it was
totally unnecessary. Right, like, at first, I was watching it because you said it, and I was like, I don't remember that happening. I went back and watched it, and at first, he's like whipping Tony's arms right before he blasts, but then Tony definitely gets like 2 blasts off that. Like, it looks like he's whipping it away. And maybe it's a dodge, but even dodging is really impractical.
Right.
So, even with the incredible talent of Whiplash for whipping repulsor blasts out of the way, Tony manages to defeat him. I'm trying to enunciate my words better because when I'm editing, I had no idea how much mush mouth I have. Okay. So Tony is able to defeat Ivan and then goes to speak with him in a holding cell, I guess to try to understand who he is and what his motivation is. And when he's walking to the holding cell, it's in Monaco, so everybody speaks French. And he's talking to the guards in French here, which I like, because again, I don't like it when they got to make everything for like the dumb audience members who won't read subtitles.
Yeah.
And his He didn't even say that much in French. It's mostly the guards talking, but his pronunciation, I know enough French to know that his pronunciation was not that good, but neither was
really?
mine. Yeah. So he goes in and he talks to Mickey Rourke's character in the holding cell, and he looks even smellier here. He's just so gross.
He's only wearing like tidy whities, isn't he? Like,
Yeah.
he's pretty much naked.
It's so unnecessary. But he has a cool line, I thought, and Mickey Rourke, that is, or Whiplash. He says,
If you can make God bleed, then people will cease to believe in him.
and
That
I think
was-
it's a cool line, but it also, I'm not sure that makes sense. Because his plan was to make people see that Tony can take a little bit of damage, and that'll ruin him. Because
Oh no, I took that to mean that he meant that the reactor technology isn't that hard to replicate after all.
yeah,
And so nobody will believe Tony for saying like, yeah, nobody else has this tech. And,
Okay,
And
all right.
now everyone's worried, and that's why all the like Gary Shandling was on TV and everything.
I got halfway there with my thinking. Because I was like, does he just mean like, oh, I've demonstrated the arc reactors, other people can do it. But I was like, I don't know if I'd call that making God bleed, but
Right.
it was a cool line. It stood out to me.
I might be wrong, but I thought that Killmonger said something similar in Black Panther, just in a
Maybe.
different way.
Maybe
We'll revisit that
Yeah,
when we
we'll
get
revisit that.
to Black Panther.
in a few weeks. So after that, you don't know that it's Hammer at the time, but we're spoiling everything. Justin Hammer helps Ivan escape the prison by faking Ivan's death.
That was a pretty decent scene, I guess.
It was interesting. I think you pointed out that the guy. I don't want to take your line here, but
Basically, when the other not his roommate, but when the prisoner walks in, you notice right off the bat, hey, he has pretty long hair, and he also has a similar build as Mickey Rourke. And they just happen to have the same inmate number. And as soon as you see the inmate number, you're like, this guy is boned. And he was.
speaking of the same inmate number, I thought it was interesting. So they're gonna fake his death by blowing up the cell with somebody with a similar build, right?
Yeah.
But they're going to blow it up in such a way that the body can't be properly identified, but the clothing can.
Yeah, that part was like, oh, well, at least his dental. Oh, wait, that's going to totally. his teeth are totally going to identify him as not Mickey Rourke.
I mean, maybe we're overthinking it. It's just a comic book movie.
It is.
So then Hammer brings Ivan to Hammer Industries, and he wants Ivan to work on his failing line of armored suits that are supposed to rival Iron Man.
Yep.
Seemed like you didn't like the scene that much.
No, I mean, not really. I guess now that I look back on it, maybe it was just so well written that I had such a distaste for it. But I mean, the whole scene was Justin Hammer gargling Ivan's balls in his mouth. I felt like. And then the scene I disliked the most was when Justin Hammer takes Ivan to the factory and shows him all of hey, here are my droids. And every time I see that, now I keep calling them hemorrhoids.
Did you make that up?
'cause
That's hilarious.
No, that's what Tony called it in the movie.
I don't
towards
remember
the
that at
end.
all. That's
He's
funny.
like, he tells Pepper Potts, "Oh, sorry, I'm trying to fend off a hemorrhoid attack."
oh, yeah.
Yeah, towards the end. But yeah, the whole, maybe it's because I use computers a lot for my day job, but the whole hacking of the sophisticated computer network and software thing. And then I don't know what's going on with Mickey Rourke's fingernails, but they look just especially gross when he was typing on that keyboard.
Yes.
And then
I don't know if that was his actual fingernail. It's got to be. Why would they pick somebody to be a hand double?
I don't know.
I think it's
The hand double.
I think it's called clubbed fingers. And if anybody's
that what it
listening, if anybody's listening who has clubbed fingers, sorry, we're not making fun of you. But
No,
yeah,
just
I was
could not
definitely
stop
taken aback.
staring at it.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, what's going on?
Okay,
there?
so it wasn't just me, because I thought I was like, maybe it's just me. Like, maybe the people's hands are different and it's just Mickey Rourke's, but.
I think what was most shocking is that I didn't remember that from previously watching the movie.
Oh, really? But you noticed it this time around?
I totally noticed it this time. I went right in my notes.
I saw that. I was like, oh, like I particularly dislike this scene, and I dislike it even more now.
I liked
But
the scene.
Yeah.
Again, it's more a credit to Sam Rockwell.
Right.
He's buttering up. I'll use a little bit cleaner language, but yours was funnier. He's buttering up Whiplash to try to get him to work for him. But I just saw that as like him doing saying what he needed to say to get the result that he needs. But also at the same time, I feel like Ivan wasn't really buying it. Like he could see right through it. And you're talking about the hacking. That stood out to me too, because Justin Hammer kept saying something about encrypting the keys. And it's like, well, like I'm not a computer engineer or whatever, but I know that keys aren't encrypted. It's what you use. Use the key to encrypt or decrypt data. So, but I just chalked that up to Hammer being clueless. I could see somebody purposely writing the script that way just to kind of underline that he doesn't really know what he's talking about.
Right. But yeah.
So while that's
Sorry,
going
I'm thinking
on,
about those fingernails and stuck in my head now.
you're gonna have nightmares about it.
It's gonna be the first thing I Google after this.
Yeah. Just look up. I think I searched like bulbous fingernails or something like that, and then it came up with club fingers, and it looked a lot like that. I want to say it's related to. It's something that is like it sounds like you're a werewolf. But there's like some medical condition.
Really?
There's some medical condition like lycanthropy, but it's not that, I don't think. And I think I think it can be related to that. But I was trying not to get too sidetracked.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine.
I sidetracked myself. Okay.
So while that's going on, it's Tony's potentially last birthday party, and he's coming totally unhinged. He's pretty wasted, and he's mucking about in the Iron Man suit while drunk, wrecking things, but in a party time kind of way, trying to be upbeat about it. And then Rhodey has to put a stop to it, and so he puts on one of the other Iron Man suits. Do you know which one it is? I think it's the Mark II. It's like all silver, though. It looks cool.
I don't know which one specifically it was, but it still looks like it's the one that was in Iron Man 1. That was the original prototype.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That sounds right.
But he looked good in it, right?
He looked great in it. It was cool. So he's got to put on an Iron Man suit to stop Tony from partying or whatever. And it got a little too silly for me here. But the fight between Rhodey, I'm just going to call him War Machine, even though he's almost never called that.
Right.
And not credited as that. But the fight between War Machine and Iron Man is really good in this. It was like everything that I complained about the Hulk and Abomination fight, it was the opposite here. Like everything had weight and momentum to it. It looked good. It didn't, there's probably a couple of times where you could tell that it was CGI, but for the most part, it was really convincing. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
And there is one line that Tony has where he says,
You want to be the War Machine? Take your shot.
That's the only time War Machine is said in this movie. So they did kind of shoehorn one in, but I thought it was fine. I wanted to hear him be called War Machine.
Yeah. Did you like the one line to DJ AM? Rest in peace, DJ AM. But the hey, give me a beat to beat my friend's ass.
Oh yeah. It was funny because he couldn't even get that line out without laughing. And I'm wondering if that was like originally an outtake, and they like did another take without him laughing, but they thought that worked better. I don't know.
I don't know. It seemed funny and appropriate laughing.
Yes.
So. But it was interesting in that like even drunk Tony Stark held his own in the
he's got
Iron
a lot
Man
more
suit.
practice. Yeah,
because he's got a lot more practice. Yeah, but you can see that even when Don Cheadle or when War Machine was coming up through the hole in the floor, like he was still kind of you could still see he was kind of wobbling because he was just getting the feel for the armor. They had a lot of
that's good. That's good detail, actually.
Yeah, they have a lot of good detail and stuff like that. I noticed. The only problem I had with that scene was actually I really liked the exercise equipment and using exercise equipment to beat each other up.
Yes.
But the only big problem I had with that scene is I think they didn't know how to tidy it up, so then they did that repulsor ray versus repulsor ray equals this stupid explosion. That part I didn't like.
I think if it weren't for that, I think, I said it was got a little too silly and goofy for me. If it weren't for that repulsor ray explosion thing, I think it would have been a little more forgivable. It was a bridge too far for me at that point, Yeah.
But it should have happened earlier.
It should have happened earlier? No, it shouldn't have happened at all. So technically, Rhodey beats Tony, and Rhodey takes off the suit and goes to Edwards Air Force Base.
Yep.
And then lands there.
I guess I don't get this part. Maybe there's some sort of like eminent domain that the government can do, but like, how is it even legal for the government to just take something that belongs to somebody private. Like when that general was going like, "You did your country proud," I was like, by what? Stealing from his best friend and stealing from a private citizen? Like, what did he do exactly that would be proud in stuff he should have pride in?
Don't forget that we live in a country that stole most of its land. So what's one Iron Man suit, right?
Well, except the guy that they stole from could probably hire like a ton of lawyers.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. I feel like certainly in movies, I feel like the government's a little bit untouchable.
Right. Fair.
Which is why you really don't want it to be corrupt.
Yeah. Fair.
So in the aftermath of the party, Tony is kind of hanging out at a donut shop, still in the Iron Man suit, and Fury shows up.
Yes.
He's your boy.
I mean, every time I see him, the bad mother effer plays in the back of my head.
Yeah.
I remember when I saw that, I remembered the Ultimates comics where the Nick Fury in that dimension or that timeline, or that multiverse was actually based off of Samuel L. Jackson. So seeing him in the movie finally suited up as Nick Fury, that was a pretty good fanboy moment, I thought.
Yeah, and it's technically his first appearance in an MCU movie. He was in the stinger for Iron Man 1, but he wasn't in Hulk at all, which I thought was weird.
Yeah.
So he shows up to talk to Tony, and Tony's got a good line where he goes,
"I told you I don't want to join your super secret boy band."
And then he's got Natalia Rushman, quote unquote, with him, and then turns out that she's Natasha Romanoff. Sorry, I keep saying Natalia Rushman. It's Natalie Rushman. He's got Natalie Rushman, but she's actually Natasha Romanoff, SHIELD agent, and she's been shadowing Tony the whole time. I think we already talked about, she's never referred to as Black Widow in the movie, but everybody knows it for sure. Especially me at the time that I saw the movie. I'm not lying.
Yeah, she looked good decked out in the Black Widow suit.
I can't argue with you there. So they're at the donut shop and they're drinking coffee. And this is just a general TV and movie gripe. Anytime somebody's drinking coffee in like their disposable cups, it is so obviously empty. Put something in the cup. That always bothers me. Takes me right out of the movie. So Fury and Black Widow give Tony a dose of something. They like shoot something in his neck and it like immediately starts to make his palladium poisoning stuff recede. And they tell him that it was lithium dioxide, which, you know, as a science nerd made me laugh. That's not a real thing. There's such a thing as lithium superoxide, which is LiO2, and you might call that lithium dioxide, but it's super unstable. You definitely wouldn't want to inject it into somebody's neck. It would just burn you from the inside. But the lithium would make you feel good because that's lithium salts are used to treat various neurological disorders like schizophrenia and stuff. So, you know, if you needed to, there is such a thing as palladium poisoning, by the way. It's hard to have happen to you, but heavy metal poisoning in general, you cure with something called a chelating agent. Chlorophyll does not help. As like Tony's been drinking the whole movie. I had a thought. I was like, is this how, I don't know if you've heard, there's a bit of a chlorophyll rage happening.
Right now?
Yeah. People are like, I've probably, maybe like a year ago, I heard like two people talking in the gym about like, oh, you gotta start drinking chlorophyll. It's so good for you. And I was like, really? That's weird. And I looked into it and it's totally bogus.
Wasn't that something that Jamba Juice started like a long time ago? Or
maybe. Well, I mean, I guess it's
like chlorophyll shots or something.
Yeah, it's let's say it's wheatgrass. And actually, I like wheatgrass. I think it has an interesting flavor, but it's not like super healthy for you. It's not bad for you, but it's not healthy at all. It doesn't do anything. Certainly doesn't cure palladium poisoning.
Interesting.
So after the donut shop scene, they go back to Tony's place, and Fury gives him the rundown on Anton Vanko and how he helped Tony's dad to design the original arc reactor. And I feel like this is another instance where what they say about Howard Stark really makes him sound like a dick. And like Tony's like,
He was cold. He was calculating. He never told me he loved me. He never even told me he liked me.
And then Fury tells him that he personally knew his dad, and his dad was a founding member of SHIELD and had been working on discovering a new element to power the arc reactor. So this is our key moment, right?
Yeah.
And at that point, Tony's basically put on house arrest, and he's looking through his dad's old stuff. He's watching a film that he made for Stark Industries. And there's a part in there where in between takes for whatever he's talking about, I think he's talking about the Stark Expo maybe, But in between takes, he's scolding Tony for being curious, pretty much. Like, Tony's curious about what his dad's doing, and he's like, get out of there, like, you're not supposed to be here. And I feel like there's a lesson to be learned there, because sometimes I feel like, I don't want the kids to mess with something because I don't want them to break it. But also, like, am I ruining their moment of discovery?
Right.
And also, there's like a part where he's drunk for a bit. Howard Stark is drunk for a bit. So A, that's where Tony gets it from, right? And B,
right.
That's even more of a bummer.
Yeah. But then he like does all of that and then seems to understand, hey, the chances are I'm not going to find this new energy thing. And he leaves that message to his son, which just, I don't know, comes off as like so crazy touching. And I don't know, I just thought, how awesome would it be to see a message from your father like that, like years later when you're actually pretty old and know a little bit more about the world than you do now.
Yeah, I really like that too. And his father actually says that, he says something like,
what is and always will be my greatest creation is you.
And I got a little weepy. And I probably just don't remember seeing it the first time, but when I did see the movie the first time, I didn't have kids, and obviously my perspective has changed. And it reminded me that, and I haven't done this in a while, I got to do it again, but I will email my kids from time to time. There's accounts that I set up that they don't know that they have, and someday I'll just give them the passwords or whatever. But it'll just be like, oh, today we had so much fun doing this, or like during the pandemic, things have been really bad lately, but I'm glad that you guys are healthy and you've been very understanding and stuff like that. So,
oh, nice. I've been wanting to do some. I mean, I have a bunch of half written letters to the girls myself that I haven't finished in that same vein.
Yeah.
Like, you turned 5 today. Man, you're amazing and you're really funny. You get to be a pain in the ass, but man, I just love you so much.
The compliment sandwich. Or I guess that's the insult sandwich. Okay, so Tony spends a bunch of time researching his dad's work, and long story short, he rediscovers and makes this new element, which I'm going to totally go on a huge rant about. Chime in when you feel it's necessary.
Is it Nerd Rant 3?
Is this only 3? Or am I up to 3 already?
I think so.
So he's trying to basically decode the information about this new element that his dad theorized to exist, I guess. And he had put the information about it in a model of the Stark Expo back in the 60s or whatever. And the only reason I can think of for doing that is maybe they didn't have good encryption back then. I mean, obviously he doesn't want the wrong people to find the information, but kind of hiding it out in the open seems a little risky. So he has Jarvis make a wireframe of the model that he can manipulate, and he's getting rid of different parts of the model, trying to see what it is that his dad hid in here. And so it basically gets down to everything's gone except for pretty much anything spherical. And then he says that the projection looks like an atom, and he goes, in which case the nucleus would be, and there's like this long pause, and he's like, here. And I'm like, he is one of the world's smartest men. It's not going to take him a second to figure out where the nucleus of this atom is. Like a 7th grader could have pointed to the nucleus of this atomic diagram faster than that. But also, as ridiculous as this is, I feel like it kind of sets your expectations. I mean, it doesn't set expectations, but kind of justifies the movie logic of him solving for time travel in Endgame, because it's kind of a similar thing where it's it's so preposterous. We have to accept that and move on. And I feel like he solved time travel a lot faster than discovering a new element. So he gets this final render of this new element. And it's a hollow sphere of smaller spheres. It's like a geodesic dome shape. And was that supposed to be a single atom? Because that's not at all what atoms look like, right? Like it was much closer to looking like an atom when he did the long pause to point to the nucleus. So I was thinking maybe that's supposed to be like the sphere is made up of individual atoms of this new element, and it's formed the shape. And like carbon will do that. It's called a buckyball. It's an allotrope of carbon. It's just like a hollow sphere made up of carbon atoms, and boron can do similar things. So, but I was a little annoyed by the movie pseudoscience. And then Jarvis immediately knows it can replace palladium in the arc reactor. He's like, this is a suitable replacement for palladium in the arc reactor. So I guess since Tony's dad was trying to create it for a similar reason, it would make sense that Jarvis could know that right away, I guess.
Right.
But then Jarvis says it's impossible to synthesize. So Tony's like, yeah, I believe you on it being a good replacement, but not that I can't synthesize it. Right?
Right. He's like, hold my beer. Hold my chlorophyll.
Exactly. But of course, I mean, he has to try to synthesize it because we wouldn't have any movie here.
I actually really liked that background music for the entire montage of him building the whatever that accelerator or whatever it was that was supposed to help synthesize the new metal.
I'm gonna rant on that in a minute.
I mean, you can, because that's all I had was like that was the only part of
it. Was
that
cool music.
Like,
it definitely was
the
cool
music.
Cool music. So he ends up calling it a prismatic accelerator, which is dumb for multiple reasons. First, it looks like he's building a particle accelerator, which is what I thought he was doing. I was like, that's cool. That makes sense. That's how you make something. Practically, you can't make a lot of something with it. You make like one atom of a new element, but I would have let that slide totally. That kind of movie magic science, fine, whatever. So it is circular, the way that a real particle accelerator would be, and he's knocking down walls and stuff. But he calls it a prismatic accelerator, and there's this prism that he uses to aim a laser beam that had somehow gone through this circular track of tubing, which I'm not sure how that happens, and what was going on in that tube to the laser. Why did it need to go through there? Also, the prism is not accelerated, nor does it appear to be doing any accelerating. So why is it a prismatic accelerator? Which is more pseudoscience nonsense. Oh, and when he's building the accelerator, he's demolishing walls with a sledgehammer. Why isn't he in the Iron Man suit to do that? It would be way easier. He's like doing it all by hand. And then one thing that stood out to me is he jackhammers the floor open to get to this giant breaker box. There's like 3 huge breakers in there. Why would that be covered by cement? Like, what if you need to get to that? So then he's almost done building it.
Yes.
And you pointed out that Coulson has a cameo here. I guess he's putting the finishing touches on. Yeah. So Coulson shows up again, played by Clark Gregg.
And then he does that shield thing.
Yes. Yeah. So I forget what he says, but Coulson picks up the shield and he's like, "What's this?" And it's very much the start of a Captain America shield. Maybe, I don't know why it's there.
It's like the design or something, or the beginning of a design for it. Yeah.
And Tony says something like that's it. That's exactly what I need. And then he uses it just to level out the piece of tubing. Like he uses it to shim the height of it. That was kind of funny. Oh, and Coulson says that he's been reassigned to New Mexico, and then you pick that up in the stinger.
Yes.
Which we'll get to.
Because it sets up the next movie.
Yes. One more gripe about, I'm sure it's not the last, but another gripe about the prismatic accelerator. He's using there's this turning mechanism that just looks like a valve wheel that he's using to turn the prism, which I don't know why he didn't aim it properly, or at least closer to properly. In the first place. But he's using this pipe wrench completely incorrectly on it. It's just all these things. He's supposed to be a genius. He should know all these things. But
yes, that's actually one of the smaller, well, to me, more obvious gripes that I had was that laser cutting through that circular mold thing or whatever it was that was holding the triangle.
Mm-hmm.
The laser cuts through a good chunk of it on one side, and then when the camera pans back to it after it zooms in on the triangle glowing, the cut is gone from the metal piece, and I'm just like, the little tiny things like that when people miss it, it becomes so obvious.
I'm gonna actually you on this one because I saw that note and I was like, oh really? How did I miss that? And I went back, I looked, and it's it doesn't really cut. It doesn't cut through the circle. It just kind of scars the surface of it. And then when they cut back to it, you're looking at it from the other side where it didn't hit.
Oh, okay. So that's what happened.
But I feel your pain on that kind of nitpickiness.
Well, that actually solves that mystery for me then.
We've checked one off the list. Do you like it a little bit better now?
No, it's still pretty bad. Whiplash just takes this. It's like this anchor that's around the movie's neck.
He is the worst part of the movie. So there's the new element, and it's some glowing blue-white triangle. So it must be insanely radioactive if it's glowing all on its own. As goofy as all the making a new element and all the problems I've described, as goofy as all that is, I do like that that's the reason that the arc reactor in the later movies has like the triangular shape instead of the circular shape. Because I don't think I really noticed it until maybe like Endgame, or maybe it was Infinity War. I was like, whoa, like why is his arc reactor now, why is it like now a triangle light instead of circular? But explained right here in the second Iron Man movie. I do feel like just the color change would have been a more logical difference, but you know, that's never going to be enough for a Hollywood studio.
Gotta spend that special effects budget, man.
That's right. And I was relieved, so relieved that they didn't call it unobtainium. I was really worried about that for a while.
What did they call it? I thought it was called unobtainium.
I don't think they called it anything. They were just like, it's a new element, and I'm fine with that. I would much rather that than something stupid. But speaking of stupid things, he puts the core, he puts the new element in the new core, puts that in his chest, and then it somehow cures his palladium poisoning. So I thought that was also stupid. I think that might have been the low point of the movie for me, because it got really goofy too. Where
the science,
not just the science, but then like he puts it in, and Tony like puts his arms out, and it starts glowing like super bright, and he's like, oh. And like all this stuff in his neck
tastes like cinnamon or something. It tastes like something.
Yeah, I think he did say something. So
can't remember what it was.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure from here on out, there's no more arc reactor complaints, at least for this movie. But I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure they don't do any more arc reactor science in the other movies. Meanwhile, Rhodey has the old Iron Man suit, and the Air Force wants to give it to Justin Hammer to reprogram it, I guess, and probably make more of them. And it wasn't clear to me if it was a trade, because he shows up for the suit, and then Rhodey and this one other guy are there, and they're like, show us what you got. And so Hammer goes through, there's a montage of him going through all the different weapons that he brought, which kind of mirrors the opening of Iron Man 1, where Tony's in the desert showing off things. But again, Hammer doesn't have the charisma. He's not really selling it. And
right.
The last weapon that he shows him, he says it's, what did he say? He says it's a kinetic kill Sidewinder missile that he calls the ex-wife. And he says it has a secondary cyclotrimethylene trinitramine RDX burst. That obviously got my attention. I was like, that sounds like it's real.
That sounds like something up your alley.
It sounds real. I looked into it. It is real. Cyclotrimethylene trinitramine is RDX. RDX stands for R&D explosive. And it's like a World War II era explosive. So I don't know why he was bragging about that. He's got an explosive that's 70 years old.
Maybe that's why it didn't do anything earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Later. Maybe it's from World War II. It was that old.
Right.
Points to the movie for using a real chemical, but then negative points because he pronounced it wrong. He says trinitramine instead of nitramine. I can't let that slide. While that's going on, Vanko has been back at Hammer Industries and turning the suits into the drones. When Hammer returns, he's not happy about that. And here's more of what I was saying before about there's kind of echoes of Iron Man 1, where now Mickey Rourke's character is essentially trapped being used to make weapons, or being forced to make weapons, like Tony in the beginning of Iron Man 1. But also like Tony, he's secretly working on his own weapon.
Right. I didn't think about that parallel.
Yeah, there's a few times. I don't know why I picked up on it this time. I mean, I guess maybe I picked up on it before and just forgot. But so Hammer basically locks him into a room with two guards, and they take his shoes, and I'm sure his feet smelled terrific. They looked disgusting, as the rest of him does.
They took his bird too.
Yep. Then after Justin Hammer leaves, Ivan presumably kills those two guards pretty easily. I kind of like that they don't even show it. They don't show what he does. It's just the next scene, and it's Whiplash calling Tony, and you just see these two guys dead hanging in the background. And Whiplash tells Tony,
"What your father did to my family over 40 years, I will do to you in 40 minutes."
And does he mean 40 minutes from now he's going to do something? Or does he mean when he does something, it's going to take 40 minutes? because
I think he means the second one.
yeah,
Right? I think it was the second one. More time had passed after that phone call.
it seems like it was about 40 minutes. Yeah,
Oh, was it? Oh.
well, 40 movie minutes.
I thought it was 40 minutes after he took over Rhodey's suit and the other drones.
Yeah, maybe. So Hammer's all psyched that he's got some working drones and he's got I guess we're calling it the War Machine suit. So he goes to Stark Expo, which is still going on, I guess. I don't know how many days have passed.
Supposed to be going for a week, I remember her.
Okay.
Actually, no. Longer, actually. From a few months, I thought. It was going on for like more than a few days.
Well, maybe it's just like every weekend for so many months.
It's like Tomorrowland, basically.
I mean, I guess if Tony's bankrolling it, do it as long as you want. So he comes out for his speech and he's trying to be Tony, kind of dancing out under the stage for his presentation. And he's talking about the press and headlines all over the world regarding the Iron Man technology and how it's been kept out of reach. And he tries to be really clever and tries to be funny, really, and say that.
Well, today, my friends, the press is faced with quite a different problem. They are about to run out of ink.
And it just totally bombs. There might have been some audible groans in the audience.
I think there was.
And it just reminds me of like every tech CEO at E3, where they're trying to be funny on stage and bombing.
And then they just bomb. Yeah.
So Hammer demos the drones. They're all equipped with arc reactors. So that was really quick work by Ivan. He did all that in a week or whatever, right? I actually went back and checked because I was like, wait, did they all have that light before? Because they all had the light in the middle of the chest, and they did not.
I don't know that they were. They didn't, huh? Oh, I don't remember.
I just went back to the scene where Hammer finds Ivan putting the drone head on one of the suits.
Yeah.
And there's no white circle in the middle of the chest there. I guess it could have been an oversight. It could have been an oversight on the continuity department.
But I mean, Hammer's got the resources. He could have just had Ivan give him the plans for maybe a dumbed down version that's powerful enough to power those suits.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I didn't really need another montage of him making a bunch of arc reactors and putting them right. I think we can connect the dots.
Yeah.
So he demos the drones. They all have arc reactors, but the big reveal is Rhodey in a tricked out Iron Man suit, which is War Machine. It turns out that Ivan has control of the drones, and he takes over them just as Iron Man arrives. And it turns out that he also has control over Rhodey's suit. And I have to assume because Justin Hammer upgraded the software, quote unquote, that allowed him to overtake it, because I don't think Tony's software would have been hacked that easily. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that too, because the whole software shit thing was playing in my head when he said that, when he started taking it over. But then at the same time, I'm curious if like Rhodey's suit has any kind of AI in it, because I thought that it did, but I don't remember technically if it ever did.
Now that you mention it, if that's the prototype that he built after the Mark 1, right? That he escaped
it's
from,
like the Mark 2.
It might be lacking a lot of that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so maybe it was easy to just take over. I thought that was where it started getting pretty good, was the whole all of them versus Iron Man thing.
Oh, all the drones and War Machine.
All the drones. Yeah, especially like how like the Marines ones, they're all very specific too. Like the Marine ones were basically tanks, and then they had those latches come down and that pinned them to the ground so that they'd have better stability. Then you had the Air Force that could fly, and I guess the Navy. The Navy ones, I guess those just walked.
They swam
and shot. Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah, that's more like good detail that I overlooked, but good on the part of the studio and you for pointing it out. So Tony's obviously he can't fight War Machine because he doesn't want to accidentally kill Rhodey, right? So he's dodging War Machine, fighting the drones, and Hammer says something about he must be controlling them, and then Black Widow's like, who? Or I think Pepper's like, who? And he won't say anything, and then Black Widow puts him in like a chicken wing hold. He folds like a beach towel and immediately he's like Ivan Vanko. He's at Hammer Industries. He immediately gives up. After that, Hammer gets arrested, and I was kind of curious what happens to him later, as in like after the movie. Like, I'm surprised he never came back. I mean, I also don't like it when they feel like they have to bring every character back for another movie, but surprised that he never made it come back because he threatened Pepper Potts pretty good on his way out.
You think you're making a problem for me? I'm gonna make a problem for you. I'm gonna be seeing you again real soon.
Yeah, like Jeff Bridges we knew died. Or supposedly died. I guess they could bring him back if they wanted to. But he was clear. He seemed pretty clearly dead at the end of Iron Man 1. Yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, did Mickey Rourke really die in this one?
Yeah, I think so, because I guess they didn't show it, but I assumed that his suit also exploded, like all the drones.
Right.
So Happy and Black Widow go to Hammer Industries to take out all the guards, and they're like, while they're driving over, Happy almost wrecks when he's like looking in the rearview mirror, trying to catch a sneak peek at Natasha changing in the back of the car. That was good for a laugh.
I don't know how she keeps a straight face when she must have been like laughing or cracking up the whole time while she's filming this with them. Jon Favreau is just so funny when he's acting.
Yeah. So you have a note here.
Yeah, it's kind of Black Widow showing up in all her glory. All those guards that you were talking about, Happy beat up like one of them, and then the entire time he beat that one guy up, like she beat the other 9.
But he was really happy that he did it.
Yeah, he was basically ready to do a victory lap until he looked up and everybody was on the ground.
Right.
Like in the hallway.
She's got really good fight choreography here too, and gets in at least one superhero landing pose. But I like her fighting style is really good. But then there's like, it might be the last guy that she takes out. You know, she's just kicking everybody's ass basically, and then one dude she just maces him, and he falls down.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. So they take out all the guards at Hammer Industries, and I guess Vanko already left the building because he's not there. But Black Widow is able to hack the computers to get Rhodey back control of the War Machine suit. Yep. So then Tony and Rhodey can team up to fight the drones.
And Rhodey gets his suit rebooted, so he's able to, I guess, like walk normal and everything. But I like that whole scene in general. Is just such a good buddy cop type scene where...
Yeah, and like the Japanese garden.
Yeah, and the Japanese garden. It really, it looks really pretty. And it's just like such a good dialogue where they're trying to discuss, who should be where when all these droids land, and then the whole time they're like, oh...
Well, we want to take the high ground, okay? So let's put the biggest gun up on that ridge.
Gotcha. Where do you want to be?
Where are you going?
What are you talking about?
I
have a big gun. You are not the big gun.
Just like cracked me up, and then just them bickering to the point where all the drones surround them, and then they're in the kill box, and then they just go at it. It's just such a fun little scene, I thought.
That whole dialogue with Tony and Rhodey is great, and it's another instance where it would not have worked with Terrence Howard, and moving to Don Cheadle is the right move. Them landing in the Japanese garden is another thing I had a very vivid memory of seeing it before. I feel like I'm losing my voice.
Just like the thumping, the thundering thump as all the drones like land and stuff.
I also liked the Tony does like the spinning laser move, kind of, and takes out a bunch of them at once. But then I also thought it was good that Rhodey was like, "Why didn't you do that earlier?" He's like, "It's kind of a one-off." So I was glad that he couldn't just keep doing that and make it easy, right?
Right. Yeah. And then Whiplash version 2 pops up. I just fucking hated it. I think the biggest reason I hated it is because as soon as he lands, he takes off his helmet, which to me is just dumb. Like, you're about to go toe-to-toe with these guys, and you take off your face protection.
Yeah, just make it easy on everybody.
Right.
I mean, I assume that this is a modified version of one of Hammer's suits.
Yeah.
And he's got new and improved, even dumber plasma whips. I thought that suit looked a lot cooler. I liked it better than the exoskeleton thing. But yeah, it was super dumb that he just takes his helmet off and fights that way. I'm guessing that it was Mickey Rourke's insistence. He didn't want to be covered up by a mask. He wanted to be in the movie.
You paid for this beautiful face. Show it.
That's right. He's got to get his money's worth.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed that the whips had like some retracting engine thing so that it could like shoot the whips out and then bring whoever gets ensnared into it like back to.
Oh,
I thought those were cool. Like,
I didn't catch that detail.
It was overall a much better improvement to the exoskeleton in the beginning, but just you're gonna take off your face protection. Like, all they have to do, why don't they just punch you in the face?
Yeah, exactly.
And then your head comes off.
Or like, you know, I mean, whips are kind of needlessly dangerous. He could easily accidentally hit himself in the face.
Exactly.
What were we talking about? Oh, I laughed pretty hard. Probably the hardest laugh I had in the whole movie. When Rhodey's like, I'm going to hit him with the ex-wife, harkening back to that missile. And so he shoots like that Sidewinder RDX missile, whatever. And it just goes tink off of Whiplash's chest. And then it like bounces off, lands in a puddle, and fizzles out with a wet fart noise. That was pretty good.
I liked it up to the wet fart noise.
Oh, I thought that's what I laughed about. I don't know. Maybe it was too silly. I was glad to see them that they brought that back because, again, one of my arguments or one of my complaints, several of my complaints in the Hulk was they kept setting something up and then not following through on it. And so I was glad to see them not do that here.
Well, Rhodey did say to put it all in the armor.
Yep. Tony and Rhodey team up to defeat Ivan or Whiplash in what I describe as a mercifully short fight. I thought it could have easily dragged on, and I feel like if they made that movie today, they would have made it last a lot longer. Yeah. So I was glad that was pretty short. But then, of course, surprise, all the drones and the Whiplash suit are rigged to self-destruct with a convenient alert and long countdown timer to give everybody time to get away.
Right.
So Tony flies off to save Pepper. He picks her up, flies over to the building. They land, a little bit of conversation, and they kiss. And I don't know what came over me, but I got a little bit weepy when they kissed. I was
really?
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
I just saw them kissing, and then it was when Rhodey's random voice comes out of nowhere and goes,
You guys look like two seals fighting over a grape.
That made me crack up.
I stand corrected. That's where I laughed hardest. That was a great line. Yeah.
That was a really good line.
But I also thought it was weird that Tony and Pepper land on the same roof that Rhodey just happened to land on too. Maybe that was the closest one. I don't know.
Yeah.
So then movie's wrapping up. Tony goes to meet with Fury again, this time in a warehouse to talk about the Avengers Initiative. Did you notice that when they first go in, there's like a news clip playing on a screen, and it's the news clip from The Incredible Hulk?
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
With like the college kids saying, it was this Hulk. So I had to relive that trauma all over again.
No, I saw that. I was just kind of wondering, like, why do they carry all 5 of those boxes just for the projector? Like, just for I was like, that's a lot of heavy stuff just for like floating holographic screens.
But if you could have a floating holographic screen, wouldn't you want to bring it with you wherever you went?
And then they still had the folders on the table.
Yes.
Like, use the screens.
That's a good point. So Fury tells Tony that he's not right for the Avengers, but then they agree that Tony will consult. And so I guess that's why Tony goes, at the end of The Incredible Hulk, Tony goes to meet Thunderbolt Ross at the end of that movie instead of Fury. I guess that was part of his consulting gig. And then I don't recall, we're going to get there eventually, but when does Tony become right for the Avengers? Because he's basically the leader of them.
Well, by the time because I think Cap's the Avenger. Captain America is because the actual leader.
Yeah, you're right.
Tony actually bankrolls everything. And then I think in that respect, he's like the CFO/COO of the Avengers.
That's a dangerous position, man. Companies go through CFOs pretty fast.
Yeah. But then like when the aliens hit in the Avengers, then it's like all hands on deck. That's when he steps up and does the whole like proves Captain America wrong when Captain America was like, "You're not the guy that jumps on the grenade."
That's right. All right, it's coming back to me. Yeah. I guess when we that's it. Avengers 1 is like the end of phase 5, right? So I think we got Thor, Captain America, and then Avengers maybe. Something like that.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I say phase 5? I meant phase 1.
Yeah, phase 1.
It's the end of phase 1. So that's basically the end of the movie. There's no mid-credits scene, but speaking of mid, AC/DC's playing over the end credits. They're not a band for me. There is a post-credit scene, and it's Coulson in New Mexico where he had been relocated to, and he's on the radio or the phone, something. He's like, "Sir, we found it," and then there's a shot of Thor's hammer.
Yep.
Setting up that movie, which we're going to cover next. I'm pretty sure when I saw this movie, I had no idea what that was, and probably looked it up. I'm assuming you did know.
Yeah, I totally saw. I totally know. And then I was like really excited because Thor is actually one of my favorite characters in the MCU too.
I definitely, yeah, I agree with you there. He's great.
Yeah.
Especially as the movies progress, he gets better and better.
Yeah, I started watching the first one and I was like, oh wow, he looks so different from fat suit withstanding, but like Thor, Chris Hemsworth at the beginning of Thor versus Chris Hemsworth.
Yes.
Like in Endgame and the other Thor,
Yeah, actually, yeah, I noticed that as well, and I started looking into it. I'm gonna save it for that episode though. Okay, so I'm gonna try to burn through this quick because this is getting to be a long episode. Well, we got alternate casting, extras, and comics. At one point, I guess Ghost was supposed to be an additional villain. I prefer not to have too many villains in a movie. I feel like that, like the Batman movies. I know that's DC. Don't at me, haters. But I feel like a lot of the Batman movies suffered from having way too many villains, and then you can't really spend enough time on one of them.
Spider-Man 3 also.
I mean, maybe sub out Whiplash for Ghost. Maybe that would have been better. But And then, of course, Ghost ended up in Ant-Man 2. And the only other thing I have here about the alt casting was, I guess Emily Blunt was considered for Black Widow, which I think she would have been pretty good. I mean, I'm definitely happy with Scarlett Johansson, but apparently Emily Blunt.
She was offered the role, I think, right? And then she had to turn it down.
Yeah, but she couldn't do it because she had to turn it down because she was too tied up with Gulliver's Travels. So that's a bummer.
That's the Jack Black movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's fine. I didn't watch it. It didn't look good. I watched the iTunes extras. There's a Black Widow featurette, but it's showing a bunch of clips from like all the Avengers movies and Civil War and stuff. So I think that this is something they put together for the Black Widow movie, and they've just kind of lumped it in with digital movie purchases for the earlier movies. A couple of deleted scenes, which were really unnecessary. I'm just going to even skip over that because I'm losing my voice.
Oh, no.
There was some featurettes, but nothing really stood out. It's all like cookie cutter stuff so that the studio can say, we have behind the scenes features for this movie to try to sell you on and buying it. One thing that I did find interesting that I had overlooked, it was a featurette called The Suits of Iron, and it called attention to the fact that Tony has the Hall of Armor, which I did notice that. Like in one scene, it shows different Iron Man suits in the back, but I totally overlooked the fact that he has a reconstructed Mark I in there, which was interesting.
Yeah. But I think the bad guys in Iron Man 1, they found all the pieces to it, but they didn't know how to put it together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And
so they already had all of it.
Yeah. Obadiah Stane's guys had pieced it together quite a bit anyway.
And then that's what they based the Ironmonger on.
Right. So they thought that the problem was that it wasn't big enough.
Basically. Yeah. They wanted their version.
So that was it for iTunes extras, which wasn't much. So then I looked at the Disney Plus extras, and there was way more. Most of it not really worth your time, but there was an alternate opening. Instead of Ivan making the arc reactor after his father dies, it's similar in tone. The music I think might have been the same, but you just hear Tony kind of weakly crying like, I'm not gonna make it. Then it cuts to him like throwing up into a toilet on his plane, and he's just like super hungover. And then it cuts to him like having to go to the Stark Expo, jump in.
Huh.
There's some repeated deleted scenes from iTunes. I assumed they were repeated. I didn't bother watching them. They had the same title. It looked like it was going to be the same thing. There's some extended scenes, which I couldn't even tell you what was different about them. Not much to say there. There was one deleted scene with Olivia Munn, actually, where it's at the party where it's his birthday party, and he puts the suit gauntlets on her, and she uses them to hover. And she says, her character there is Rebecca with one C. She's like, I'm Rebecca with one C. Sure didn't mind seeing it, but I think they cut it for pacing. You totally don't need it. You kind of already got the idea that Tony was spinning out of control.
Right. How did the gauntlets work without the chest piece powering it?
That's a good point. There's, they had like these tubes coming off of them, and it was like going into Tony's shirt. So he had connected them somehow. So it was totally unnecessary. There was the one of the deleted scenes I skipped over talking about was also with Black Widow using the gauntlet at the same party in the same way, but just one of them, and she uses it to, I think she uses it to blow up an ice statue, maybe. But again, like all that was so unnecessary. And I actually thought with Black Widow doing it, I kind of thought that it went against her character. But then I was like, well, maybe she's just playing the part to try to earn his trust, right?
Right.
So one other thing on that Olivia Munn scene, in the credits, she's listed as Chess Roberts. And that's because when they cut out this party scene, Jon Favreau gave her a real quick bit as a reporter covering the Stark Expo at the beginning. And she might even say so much as like, I'm Chess Roberts or whatever. I guess her and Favreau are pretty tight. Deleted scene of on the jet, Tony and Pepper and Rhodey basically arguing. I didn't care for it. Glad they cut it. They had an extended scene of Tony trying to find a replacement for Palladium. And it was also another one I'm glad they cut because they were trying to justify the nonsense science more, which just makes it worse. And then there's a lot of behind the scenes featurettes on suit design. The Black Widow training was kind of cool. Oh, and this was one thing I thought was interesting. Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, he helped with the score, and they had him like watching the fight scene, for example, and just kind of like riffing along to it. So, and he said something really dumb, but
what was it? Just out of curiosity.
He was like, oh, it's like this score is just, it's in this really weird timing. He's like, it's in 7/8 timing. It's so weird. I was like, 7/8, like, that's not that weird. I was like, it's not 4/4. It's not like the second easiest one, which is 3/4, right? But I don't know. It's not the first time I've heard him say something like that. And I think he's a great guitar player, great musician. And I really like him like as a person, but he does kind of put his foot in his mouth sometimes with stupid things like that.
Interesting.
So just real quick on the comics, since you're the comics guy, was Whiplash as lame an antagonist in the comics too?
I really don't know. I mean, if he was in the comics, I hope he had like a really bad like death or something, because he was just lame, and I don't know. Everything about his character was lame. So I don't think I've ever read a story arc with him involved. So I couldn't tell you.
To be fair, he doesn't ever last long, right? He's got the first exoskeleton suit. He gets taken out pretty quickly, and then when he's got the Hammeroid suit, he doesn't last very long in that either. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe it's supposed to be lame. So I didn't really have any proposed changes other than I didn't care for Whiplash, but I don't have a better villain to sub in for him.
I mean, I would have rather they did all of the extremist stuff from Iron Man 3 in this one, just because Whiplash, I don't know, like Jeff Bridges was such a good villain in the first one, and then to go from that to
it
this
would be hard to
really
follow. Yeah,
you know, and so yeah, I would have preferred like the Armor Wars stuff like coming in next with all his technology, basically everybody trying to copy it and trying to steal it, and what are the ramifications from that. Like that story arc was pretty interesting, and I would have rather seen that.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially if they had to build in some time before they do the more science fiction-y stuff, like the extremist armor and stuff.
I'm not even sure what that is.
Oh, that's what that biological thingy where, what's his name? The Memento guy, when his arm gets cut off and he can regrow it because of the biohacking that they did or something.
Yeah, that's going to be a rough watch for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not... I had
a lot of problems.
Iron Man 1, 2, and 3 are in the same order that I like them. So.
Yeah. Yes. I agree. Even that I like this one so much more than I thought I did. That still definitely rings true.
Yep.
Okay, so that brings us to ranking, and Rotten Tomatoes critics and the audience seem to be pretty much in agreement, 72% and 71% respectively. Much lower than Iron Man 1, which was 94, 91%. I feel like 72 and 71 is a pretty decent score for a sequel, but I think it's a little low. I would go a little bit higher.
Really?
It's a tight. I really enjoyed it. It's a tight script. It moves along.
Yeah.
I was never bored. I never lost my interest, and maybe it's just because I was expecting to hate it so much that I'm like, I was shocked. I really did enjoy it. I liked it. I bumped it up my own personal ranking. Like I know you know this, but for the listener, I have ranked all the MCU movies as I've gone, and I moved it up 7 spots.
Oh, whoa. That's quite a bit.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now I'm really curious.
I had it second to last. So.
Oh, okay.
And then I moved it up 7 from there. But anyways.
It's definitely not second to the last for me.
Yeah. So we had trashed this the entire time up until this episode and predicted it wouldn't displace Hulk for second. So we have Iron Man 1 in first and the Incredible Hulk in second. Where would you slot this
still
in?
For third for me.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I would put it above Incredible Hulk.
Really? Okay. Oh man.
So now we gotta actually we have to actually do Infinity Saga Trivial Pursuit Poker, which brings us to that section. So I put the questions in again. Oh, I went first the first time. You went first the second time. So it's technically my turn to go first. Sure. But do you want to just flip a coin or something to see who goes first, or you just want to keep alternating?
We can just keep alternating. Are you gonna enhance it?
Yeah, enhance. Okay, I've enhanced. Take a minute to read. I'll cut out all the boring dead air, and then I will bid first after that. Okay, I am confident on 1, and I think I'm worried that I'm gonna bid 1. I'm gonna go with 1.
I think I only really have 2 that I'm confident in.
Okay, so you're gonna bid 2 and
Yeah.
try to beat me, or you're gonna let me have the win with 1?
I think I have 2.
Okay. Let me find what I did with the answers. First question. Peter Quill said he started piloting the Milano at what age?
9.
I would have said 11. It's 10.
It's 10. Oh,
split the difference.
Wow. Oh, do I win for being the closest without going over?
No. Especially not when ranking is on the line. Okay, next question. What is the last Infinity Stone Thanos acquires?
The Soul Stone. Oh, wait, no, not the Soul. The Mind. Mind?
All right.
Yeah.
What's your final answer there?
The Mind.
Yeah, it's Mind Stone. That's the one I knew. Yeah. So you got 1.
We both got 1.
Well, it just matters. You just have to get 2.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't matter, right? Because I can read the answers.
Okay.
So you have to get, if you get 2 or more, then you win, and it goes third, and I'll be bitter about it forever.
Okay.
What is the name of Scott Lang's boss who fires him from the ice cream store after he finds out Scott Lang is an ex-convict?
I want to say Kevin.
That's a good guess. I had no idea. It's Dale.
Dale? Oh, God, that's right. Days. All right.
What is the name Eitri
Yeah.
gives? Is that all right? What is the name Eitri gives for a king's weapon that, in theory, could summon the Bifrost?
The Stormbringer.
Is that your final answer?
I think so.
Can you repeat that again?
Stormbringer?
Stormbreaker.
Stormbreaker. Oh! I knew it was Storm something. Damn
when
it.
I saw the answer, I was like, oh, I was going to get that. Okay. So you still got 1.
Yeah.
Tony Stark keeps Colonel James Rhodes waiting on his private plane for how many hours? 2, 3, or 4?
3.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, actually, that's the one I was iffy on.
I was just like, come on, multiple choice. All right, and last one just for funsies. What is the name of the global organization that oversees S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I don't know. The UN?
Might as well be. The World Security Council.
Oh.
All right, so you win that one. Iron Man 2 goes into a very close third, if you ask me. We got Iron Man, Hulk, Iron Man 2.
Got it.
All right, so next up we have Thor. If you want to contact us, you can check the show notes for our socials and email address. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your pets. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.
Bye-bye. Why was I waving?
Absolutely the Best Podcast is a production of Audio Johnny, a subsidy of Corporation Johnny.
Corporation Johnny. If it exists, we own it.